Are you making one of these common query letter mistakes that totally tank your chances, even if your book is amazing? Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm an agented author, and my debut mystery novel is coming out with an imprint of Penguin Random House in 2026. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing 5 query letter faux pas that I see all the time. So after watching this video, you won't make these 5 mistakes anymore. So sit back, relax, and figure out how you are going to stand out from the query letter slush pile for the right reasons instead of the wrong ones. The first query letter faux pas that I want to talk about today is improperly addressing the agent. Yes, it is possible to make a query letter mistake before you even get into the first body paragraph. Unfortunately, this is an extremely common but totally avoidable mistake. How do you address your query letter? First, make sure that you have the agent's name correct. This sounds like a no-brainer, but I have heard of so many agents say, I got a query letter that wasn't even addressed to me or called me by the wrong first name. So do your due diligence and confirm that you put the right name. Obviously, literary agents know that you are likely querying many other people, but putting the right name at the top is a quick and simple way to make the letter feel more personal. If you simply put "to whom it may concern" at the top, the agent may wonder if you sent this exact same letter to every single literary agent you could find online. And if you put the wrong name, it shows that you didn't read over the letter before sending or really put any thought into sending this query letter. The agent knows that you're querying other people, but they also want to know that you are intentionally querying them because you've done a little bit of research into them and do want to work together. One thing that I consistently see authors struggle with is how they should address the query letter. Do they put "Dear Mr. or Mrs.? Is it okay to use the first name? How formal should they be?" When I sent out query letters, what I did was address each letter to the agent's full name. So for example, on the successful query letter that I sent my now agent, at the top, I put "Dear Abby Saul." You can also just put the agent's first name if you want. I've heard a lot of people do that as well, but I don't recommend using honorifics for multiple reasons. First of all, it does sound a little bit more stilted and formal. It is totally okay to use the agent's first name, they don't mind. And secondly, you don't necessarily know what honorific the agent would prefer. Now, in the English language, for men, it's very easy. All men are Mr. But for women, there are 3 different honorifics that you could use. You could use Miss, Ms., or Mrs. And how do you know which one is the right one to use? You may not know the agent's marital status. And also, there are some people who have a preference between which one they like to be called. I remember when I was in school, most teachers wanted to be called Ms., which can be used for people who are single or people who are married. But you don't know. Is the agent a Miss? Is she a Mrs.? How do you even know what her pronouns are? Have you double checked the website to see? So, because of all of that Miss, Ms., Mrs. confusion, I think just using the agent's full name is a good way to be personalized without being presumptuous. Faux pas number 2 is saying that your book is like nothing the agent has ever seen before. Yes, it is good to be unique, but the reality is that pretty much any idea worth writing has already been done in some form. If you say that nobody in the history of humankind has ever written an idea like yours, it makes you sound arrogant or uninformed. Another thing to keep in mind is that agents, publishers, and even readers don't even want a 100% unique idea anyway. They want something that is the same but different. Now, what do I mean by this? Agents and editors want books that they know will sell. They want to be able to look at your pitch and identify the target readership for this title. So they want you to be somewhat familiar to other popular books, but have your own unique spin on this familiar idea. That way, it stands out, it's different enough, but they can quickly identify, okay, this is the type of reader who's going to want to buy this book. And as for readers, they're not going to go to Barnes& Noble and look for a book that's like nothing they've ever read before. They're going to look for a book that has a trope that they know they like, an enemies to lovers romance. Or they're going to ask their friends, hey, I just read this really great page-turning mystery. What other mystery recommendations do you have for me? They want to pick up something that they're confident they're gonna like. After all, a new hardcover book is $30. That's pretty expensive. At the same time, however, agents, publishers, and readers don't want something that is totally derivative. They want something that is going to have a fresh spin on familiar story elements. That's why I say they want something that's the same but different. And I think the best comp title strategy is to say your book is X meets Y. I made a YouTube short talking about this. We'll link it in the card. Query letter faux pas number 3 is unrealistic comp titles. Comp titles are the bane of many querying authors' existence. What comp titles should you use? Generally speaking, you want to pick something that was published traditionally in the last 3 years and has somewhere between, let's say, 1,000 to 100,000 Goodreads ratings. In your query letter, you say that your book is going to be the next Hunger Games or compare yourself to Dan Brown. That doesn't give the agent a realistic idea of where your book sits in the market. Because let's be honest, titles like those have enjoyed levels of extreme success that most authors will never achieve. I mean, we can all hope and pray that someday we'll be as famous as Suzanne Collins and make as much money as her and get our trilogy adapted into movies with prequels that then also become movies and merchandise, etc. But realistically, I don't know if that's ever going to happen to any of us. So when you use really, really successful books as comp titles like this, it tells the agent that either you're arrogant and you really believe that you're going to be that famous, or you're just dreadfully misinformed. Either you don't know what comp titles should be, or you haven't really researched the market, and you might come into this relationship with unrealistic ideas about how your future is going to go. Another thing is you want your comp titles to be recent, because a book that was published in, say, 1990 may be very different from the books that are selling in 2025. Somewhere within the last 3 years is a really good metric to shoot for, because then it is more in line with current market trends. Now, I do think if you are writing something that is a retelling of, say, a classic, you can mention that in your query letter. For instance, Alexa Dunn on YouTube, I remember that her first book, she said she pitched it as Jane Eyre in space because it was a retelling of Jane Eyre set in space. But if you wrote, let's say, a historical romance novel and say in your query letter that it's going to be the next Jane Eyre, one, that book is hundreds of years old, and two, odds are you are not going to become a classic. Before we go on to query letter faux pas number 4, remember that if you're finding this video helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me identify what videos are resonating with my audience and also helps my content find more viewers. Faux pas number 4. This is a controversial one, but I 100% believe that it's true. You should not be talking about themes instead of plot. I understand that many authors feel strongly about the themes of their book. There are certain topics that they are passionate about and wanted to discuss. However, themes do not belong in a query letter because themes don't sell books. Plot does. When readers go to bookstores or libraries, they're not looking for a book that has certain themes. Most readers probably don't even care about themes that much. They're looking for exciting plots, their favorite tropes, things that sound interesting and cool. You want to focus on the plot of your novel in the query letter so the agent understands what your story is about and what they're going to read about for the next 300 or so pages if they request your full manuscript. If you vaguely say that your book explores grief or feminist themes, they don't really know what you mean by that because that's an idea, not a story. In your query letter, you need to tell the agent who the target audience of your book is, what the book is about, and who the main character is. That is how they're going to understand if your story is the right fit for them and what space it may occupy in the publishing market. Another reason not to talk about themes in your query letter is because themes will naturally make themselves apparent when the agent starts reading the book. If, say, your book explores grief, the agent will be able to tell that when they get to the plot point in the book that involves your main character mourning the death of her beloved sister. So instead of talking about themes in your query letter, keep it focused on plot. After reading your query letter, the agent should be able to understand who the main character is, what it is they want, what's standing in their way, and what will happen if they don't get it. And now we are at query letter faux pas number 5, editorializing. This book is laugh out loud funny. All readers are sure to cry. The plot twist will make you gasp. Now, what is wrong with all 3 of those sentences? They're editorializing. You're sharing an opinion about your own work and telling the agent what they're going to do or how they're going to feel. You want to let your work speak for itself. Avoid editorializing because whether you realize it or not, by doing this, you are making a promise that you may not be able to fulfill, setting the agent up for disappointment. But if you say the book is laugh out loud funny and they don't laugh, maybe just have a slight chuckle or think, oh, that was kind of amusing. What if you say that the plot twist is going to make them gasp, but they get there and they're just like, yeah, that makes sense. What about if you say that the book is sure to make them cry, but then the big sad moment comes and they don't shed a single tear? If that happens, you've now effectively made the agent a false promise, telling them they were going to have a reaction that they didn't. You've set them up for disappointment. And so maybe your book, which they would have thought was witty and clever before, now feels disappointing because it wasn't the humorous romp you promised. You also just can't guarantee these things. Maybe some readers cried when they read your book, but other people just aren't the emotional types who cry at books. Maybe your twist really shocked somebody, but somebody else who thinks about plot twists more deeply or has read more mysteries is going to be able to see it coming. Not every reader is the same, so avoid making promises like this in your query letter. Instead, let your work speak for itself and focus on making it as strong as it can possibly be. If you enjoyed this video today, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You can drop a pencil emoji in the comments so I know you watched this entire video. If you want to check out another one of my videos, I recommend this one, which is about how I signed with my literary agent after just 1 week of querying. Thank you so much for being here today. I wish you luck in the querying trenches, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.